The world has been taken over by rune monsters, who are destroying and dominating ordinary citizens, destroying their cities and causing chaos. People who possess more than 60% of the rune spirit have a chance to become a rune master and destroy monsters. The main character has only 27% of the rune spirit. His dream is to become not just a master, but the king of the runes. The city was littered with the corpses of unfortunate people who did not survive the meeting with the monsters. The rats came running to feast on the flesh of a dead man. But suddenly a bird flew at them, ready to devour them themselves. But flying away with the prey, an eerie bird, shrouded in purple lightning, reached it. The monster caught up with its target and sank its claws, tearing the hawk to shreds. The predator that overtook the ordinary bird turned out to be a purple electric eagle, an A-rank rune beast nicknamed the King of Heaven. Sitting down to rest, the King of Heaven notices that someone is shooting at him. The animal manages to fly up and dodge the bullet. The shooter was Ralph Duncan, a high school student and rune sniper. Having knocked the bird off balance and taking better aim at the weak spot, under the throat, the main character manages to shoot and hit the eagle. Ralph's partner, John Claude, rejoices at such a quick victory and exclaims that they are the fastest team that passed the test. But the main character notices that this is not all. An unknown monster with menacing red eyes was looking at the heroes from under the ruins, preparing to attack the two guys. This monster is a horned white wolf, a B-rank rune beast. As soon as the monster jumps out of its hiding place, it immediately notices John and attacks him. After the attack, the guy notices that something strange is happening to him. Less than a second passes before realizing that this is the end for John. He manages to utter a dying cry and disappear into thin air, leaving behind only 2 stones. Undeterred, Ralph shoots at the wolf and hits him in the head, but this bullet does not cause any damage to the animal. At this moment, the main character realizes that the test will not be easy. The guy tries to attack the monster a couple dozen more times. But during the attack, Duncan is wondering how he can cope with the monster, and seeing that the horned one is looking straight at him, he understands that he cannot escape. Since the main character and the monster are in a dilapidated building, Ralph saw the protruding ties that hold the concrete structure together, and decides to destroy them to immobilize the enemy. After a shot at the fastenings, a concrete collapse occurs, thereby pinning the wolf to the floor. The wolf howls in pain, but in his eyes there is still anger and a desire to tear the main character into pieces. After this clever trick, the main character discovers that behind him lie the stones that were left after John's death. Having picked them up, he remembers that stones filled with runic energy can turn into self-runing weapons. Duncan activates the weapon and uses it to finish off the horned white wolf. The monster calls out, and, going limp, after a clear blow from the main character, turns into pixels. Having defeated the monster, the main character wakes up in a capsule. The entire test took place in a simulation with the world and monsters. Duncan crawls out of his capsule. A panicking John stands next to him, because he did not expect to see the second monster, which is why he died so easily from the clutches of the wolf. The partner asks the teacher why there was such a setup, because they were told that there would be only one monster, to which the teacher replies that he did not say that there would be no additional tasks. Other groups that failed the test complained that it was too difficult, and doubted that the tests would help them in actual battle against rune monsters. Together with the groups, the girl was also indignant, hitting one of the simulation capsules with all her might, breaking the glass in the process. Turning around, the main character sees his girlfriend, Cicely, the heiress of a martial arts school. Duncan asks the girl to calm down, otherwise, after her outrage, she would have to compensate for damage to public property. Of course, this did not cool the girl's ardor, and she, in a rage, grabbed the main character by the chest and asked if he could cope with the task and kill the horned wolf. The teacher also responded to all the indignation, saying that in the real world the rune beasts would not give even a minute to collect their thoughts. Even though the students have good killing skills, they still need to train. But the teacher did not ignore Duncan's good passing of the test, and, praising him, invites him to pick up the test results. Even though John and Cicely failed the test, they are very happy for their friend Ralph's success. However, not everyone is happy for the main character, and one of his classmates decides to punish the guy by tripping him up. Duncan notices this and responds to his classmate by simply stepping on his foot. The guys who study with the main character scoff that even if Ralph managed to pass the test, this does not mean that he will become a real warrior, because the main character does not even have the minimum percentage of rune spirit. Cicely heard this conversation and could not pass by the offenders of her friend, because such braggarts cannot even compare with her, who has 92% of rune energy. For such offensive words that her classmates said about Duncan, the girl could not restrain herself and cracked the guys, forcing them to apologize to the main character. Even though Duncan passed the test well, killing a purple eagle and a horned white wolf. His rune spirit percentage was only 27%. Previously, in 2030, the world was calm and alive. People were walking on the streets. Children were enjoying every ray of sunshine. But in the same year, many wormholes began to appear around the world. Countless meteorites fell to the ground, thereby destroying cities and claiming many human lives. The meteor shower lasted 3 months, and in total the world's population was destroyed by 30%. But this apocalypse was not yet the worst thing that humanity had to face. From another dimension, certain monsters known as rune beasts invaded the earth. These were animals that the world had not seen. They were huge, terrible, and possessed such superpower that even atomic weapons could not bring down. People lived in fear and hid from monsters until a ray of hope appeared. The first rune warrior. Humanity began a resistance against the rune beasts for the liberation of their home planet. The warriors built a wall and a barrier of runic energy to give ordinary citizens their normal lives and protect them from monsters. But the war did not seem to end. Furious after passing the test, Ralph decided to distract himself by visiting his comrades at Flying Donkey Logistics. Having greeted the main character, the smuggler Lucas said that Duncan had a good order waiting for him, for which he would pay decently. Thanking him for the work, the guy decides that he will do it, because he must earn money for Susie's treatment. And since he is just a high school student, this is the easiest path he could choose. Having picked up the order, the main character leaves on a motorcycle to the place of delivery, having previously listened to Luke's instructions that Duncan be careful and not come to the attention of the police, since their activities are prohibited. And making it clear that if he gets caught, no one will stand up for him. While Ralph was driving, he was already imagining what he would buy with the money he earned, and did not notice that a police car was standing right in front of him. The police decided to conduct a control check of all citizens. Afraid of getting caught with the cargo, the main character turns around and decides to run away. Such a trick, of course, aroused the suspicion of the police, and they began to chase him. The main character manages to hide in an alley. Glad that he has outwitted the police, Duncan does not notice that he has driven his wheel into a banana peel and flies out of his seat, face first into the asphalt. Despite the painful blow, he had a more serious problem. He noticed that he had lost part of the load. Having quickly looked around, the main character finds unusual objects. These turned out to be the eggs of a rune beast. And now, he understood why there was such a high price for the order. Because if he was caught, he would face the most severe punishment. Having collected the eggs, Ralph exhales, because the eggs are not damaged, which means the deal can be completed. But when he put 2 eggs in the box, he noticed an empty space in which there should be another egg. In a panic, the main character begins to look for the last egg, and notices it in the trash. But it turned out to be cracked, and it is unknown who could have hatched from this small egg. While inspecting the damaged item, Duncan hears some noise and turns around to see a cobweb flying at him. At the last moment, the main character dodges and does not fall into the trap. This web belonged to the bone spider, a C-rank rune beast that hatched from the egg. This spider is clearly aggressive towards the main character. Having scouted the situation, the spider understands where the main character is and attacks him, releasing its web, but the guy deftly dodges the attack. Drawing a knife, Duncan jumps on top of the spider and plunges the weapon straight into its head. Having tried to stick a knife into the spider, the guy realizes that even though this spider has just hatched, it already has abilities that cannot be curbed by human strength. The monster, not wanting to lose to the main character, attacks him again. Unable to think of anything better, Duncan decides to run away. But the monster is not ready to let go of its prey so easily, and let it block with its web. Taking advantage of the main character's hesitation, the spider releases its web, grabbing the guy by the leg. Duncan panics and tries to get out, but realizes that the threads are tightly attached to him. Pulling him closer to himself, the monster raises its claw, ready to kill the guy right on the spot, and the main character mentally says goodbye to his life. The monster immediately knocks out his opponent, for whom he has his own plans. Waking up, Duncan discovers that he is completely wrapped in a web and realizes that he will soon become a delicious dinner for the spider. Ralph despaired. He realized that the monsters in the simulation and in the real world were different, that even a newly hatched beast was capable of killing him. But the main character realizes that he has not yet avenged his parents and refuses to give up. And suddenly he heard a mysterious voice in his head, which offered to change his fate by accepting the system. The guy is ready to do anything to achieve his goal, and without hesitation agrees to accept the game of the system. After accepting the system, the guy is automatically completely healed and receives 10 stat points for free. Strength, endurance, agility, and intelligence. The system also offers a way to get rune energy by completing daily tasks. The guy does not believe in everything that is happening, but decides to try to take advantage of this, because if he remains inactive, he will definitely die. Thanks to healing and acquiring stats, the main character manages to destroy the web on his own. But the guy understands that he cannot rely only on his new strength to defeat the bone one. Remembering what the teacher told in class about the weak points of rune beasts, Duncan decided to use the remaining gasoline in his motorcycle to neutralize the monster, because its weak point is fire. The beast attacks the main character, but he manages to dodge and run to his motorcycle. Once near the vehicle, Duncan immediately opens the fuel tank and pours out all the contents. The bone spider does not have vision and navigates the area by hairs and sounds. So Ralph decides to take advantage of this and throws a stone directly into a puddle of gasoline, thereby calling the spider closer to him. Hearing the sound, the spider quickly rushes to the trap, and without wasting time, the main character sets fire to a puddle of gasoline. The spider burns out, and the system congratulates the guy on leveling up. The system provides a method that improves the energy of runes. A bottle with something liquid. The guy drinks the contents with disbelief. After drinking the elixir, the main character instantly receives even more percent of the runes. Now he has 56%. But the guy understands that this is not enough to become a master, and the guy decides to continue playing with the system. Next to the dead spider, Ralph notices something shiny. It was a rune. The guy picks up the stone with thoughts of how much this sparkling stone can be sold for. Having picked up the stone, the main character remembers about the order, and deciding that it is still illegal, the client will not make a fuss about the undelivered order, so he has nothing to fear. Therefore, he quickly retreats from the place of the massacre. It's already deep night outside. Duncan climbs the stairs to his home, while thinking about his acquired runic power, and that he may well become a real rune warrior. The main character thinks about what to do with these eggs. The idea comes to his mind to boil them and eat them. But remembering about the bone spider, suddenly he is also in the other eggs. He refuses this idea. On the threshold of Ralph's house, he is met by his sister Susie, a blue-haired girl with large amber eyes. Susie notices that the guy is wounded and all dirty, but the main character rushes to reassure his sister, saying that the red stains on his clothes are paint, and the abrasions are simply due to a fall from a motorcycle. The sister also notices that her brother has become more muscular, and Duncan understands that his stats affect his physical characteristics. About his physical fitness, the main character tells his sister that there is nothing special about it. He just trains very productively, and Susie is glad that her brother has become so handsome, and now all the girls will admire him. Duncan is indignant as to why his younger sister already knows about such obscene words, to which she replies that she read it from her favorite book. Not wanting his sister to read it, he takes away her book, making up the excuse that it is bad for her health. Susie, of course, is unhappy with this action of her brother, but Duncan hurries to bribe his sister by giving her a plush dinosaur. The girl, having forgotten the recent conversation, is very happy about the gift, but asks where she got the money from to buy the toy. Duncan, of course, will not admit where he got the funds from, but he said that he would definitely become a rune warrior in order to heal his sister. Duncan's sister Susie is disabled. After one incident, her legs gave out, and now she has to move in a wheelchair. Therefore, the main character wants to quickly become a rune warrior in order to heal his sister and give her a chance for a normal life. Rune warriors nowadays are the richest people, with an endless amount of money. All roads are open to warriors, and they have a huge advantage over civilians. At this time, a massacre is taking place at Flying Donkey Logistics. The client did not receive his goods, so he came with his guys to knock out information about where his order was. Luca assures them that he does not know where the order is, but the bandits do not believe him and threaten that if the deal is not completed by tomorrow, they will kill everyone. Victor, the same client, the owner of an underground fight club, enters the conversation and says that this order is very important, and if the smuggler does not tell where it went, then the most unpleasant consequences await him. Luke admits that he gave the order to the main character, but he cannot contact him and is afraid that Duncan could be arrested. Victor expresses doubts because the person to whom this order was intended is a very respected client, whom no one can cross. Luca begs Victor to give him one day to find the messenger and return the parcel back. But the gang leader refuses this and says that he will find the boy himself, to which Luca replies that he doesn't have to do this, because the main character is just a boy. For such words, the smuggler receives from Victor's henchmen, who force him to tell everything he knows about Duncan. Luca gives up and reveals information about the main character. After Luca's confession, Victor orders to quickly find the main character and take what belongs to them. The next morning, getting ready for school, the main character gives instructions to his sister about safety, so that she does not open the door to strangers, and promises that in the evening he will cook her favorite dish. During the night, Ralph still couldn't figure out how to get rid of the eggs. Carrying them around was very risky, so he simply hid them at home. While the main character was walking in thought, he did not notice that someone was watching him from around the corner. Having walked a little further, Duncan feels something trying to touch him. Having a good reaction, Duncan manages to immediately intercept the hand of his suspicious pursuer. It turned out to be John. When asked why he sneaked up on the main character, he muttered something in response. Not wanting to listen to John, Ralph called him to quickly go to school together, otherwise they would be late. Approaching the school, the guys hear some suspicious screams. They notice the gangsters. John recognizes them, because they are famous gangsters in the area. Duncan realizes that these gangsters are after him because of an undelivered order. At this time, the bandits pester Cicely, offering her a ride in a car and promising that they will be affectionate with her. John fearfully says that these guys urgently need to be stopped, otherwise there is no telling how this will end, and offers to call the police. But Ralph has his own methods of solving problems. He picks up a brick and hits the healthiest one on the head. The gangsters are at a loss as to who is this daredevil who dared to attack them. Cicely screams for Duncan to quickly run away from them. Hearing this name, the gangsters understand that it was for him that they came here. The tall gangster swings at the main character, but thanks to his new strength, he becomes more agile. Therefore, he easily manages to dodge the enemy. Taking advantage of the moment, Ralph attacks the bandit and hits him with all his might with a brick. The gangsters realize that this guy is very powerful, and speculate that he might be a natural rune master. At this time, Tolstoy continues to pester Susie, for which he receives a kick right in the nose from her. Duncan gloats over the bandits, to which they say that they still felt sorry for them, but now they will fight with all their might. The gangsters, realizing that these high school students cannot be defeated with normal strength, decide to use their F-rank rune power. After activating the gangster's power, the main character will attack Tolstoy, but realizes that he cannot even touch him. Duncan realizes that things are bad and they will not be able to defeat the bandits, and suddenly the gangsters received a blow from where they did not expect. Turning around to see who it was, Fat and Tall stood in a stupor, because they saw someone whom they did not expect at all. It was Ding, E-rank rune master and Cicely's father. Cicely was very happy to see her father. She was anticipating how unpleasant the attacker would be now. Seeing Dean, the gangsters quickly run away because they understand that they will not be able to stand against him. Duncan, sensing the taste of victory, decides to play a final trick on the bandits by throwing a brick stone after them. Having completed the fight, the system reminds of itself, informing the main character that he has completed the mission. Cicely asks her father how he ended up near the school, to which Dean replies that he was just passing by. The master asks the guys why the gangsters fought with them and what they did. Cicely and Duncan simply shrug their shoulders, thereby making it clear that they do not know. Dean gave advice so that they should no longer contact gangsters and not create problems. After saying goodbye, he moved on. Cicely remembered that the bandits told Duncan that they had come for him. The main character began to resist and said that the girl just heard all this. Hiding behind cover, the gangsters call their senior and complain that they could not complete the task, to which he is indignant on the phone that they are completely useless. But the elder came up with a better plan to get rid of Duncan. He found out that the main character lives with his younger sister and sends gangsters straight to his house. Meanwhile, lessons have already begun at school. The teacher is perplexed that some students still do not understand the identity of the rune stones and their differences. He called Ralph to answer, since the main character is the most diligent student. The main character began to tell what he knew about rune stones. Red rune stones are weapon stones. They have patterns engraved on them. If the energy of the runes is directed into them, they will turn into special weapons. Blue rune stones are talisman stones and can be engraved with specific patterns that can be embedded into weapons to activate specific skills. Green rune stones are protection stones. They have a similar effect to red stones, but they can only be used on armor due to different inscriptions. Red stones cannot be used on objects, and green stones cannot be used on weapons. The teacher praised Duncan for his good answer. Despite the good answer, his classmates still laugh at Duncan, because despite his knowledge, his percentage of rune spirit will not allow him to become a real warrior. Classmate Dennis boasts that he is worthy of this title, and when he becomes a warrior, he will not treat his comrades badly. John grins at him, because if it weren't for his mom and dad, Dennis wouldn't have achieved anything. Cicely doubted the strength of one of her classmates, and noticed that even despite the rune spirit, he did not have the courage to become a real warrior. Dennis was indignant at Cicely's words, saying that she was mistaken, to which the girl offered to arrange a fight and find out which of them was stronger. Angry, Dennis runs out of the office and promises that Cicely will triple. John and Duncan will regret that they do not believe in him as a rune warrior. The guys are happy that the bully has left them behind and call him a coward, because he is not ready to prove his strength in action. Duncan invites the guys to compete in a simulation. Cicely agrees to this proposal, and John refused the competition and decided that he would just be an observer. The guys went to the virtual capsule warehouse and went to the virtual arena. Cicely and John separated from the main character. Duncan's partner was surprised that the girl is not at all afraid of losing and goes ahead, to which the girl replies that she is confident in her abilities and will win. But to win, she needs bait, and she will have a bespectacled guy. Immediately after these words, a bullet flies right near John's face. John is in a panic. Duncan scratched his face with a bullet. Cicely tells the guy to quickly move away, because the real show is about to begin. Cicely activates her rune weapon and exclaims, so that the main character prepares for his fastest loss in life. In response to this, Duncan shoots the girl, thereby making it clear that he does not agree with her statement. Cicely deftly dodges the attack, avoiding injury. Because of the gunshot, Cicely quickly finds where Duncan is hiding. But before she can attack the main character, the girl gets shot right in the chest. Her game is over. Joyful John runs out of his hiding place and congratulates Duncan on his easy victory. The main character is happy, because if he fought with Cicely in real life, he would have lost long ago. Cicely returned back to the arena, as she was not satisfied with this outcome of events, and challenges Duncan to a rematch. Suddenly, the guys notice that something is wrong with the hologram of Cicely. Worried that the capsule might have broken, the guys decide to return to the real world and check if everything is okay with the girl. Waking up, Duncan heard a voice very similar to Dennis's and became very worried. Turning around, he saw that his classmates were pouring water on Cicely's capsule, thereby breaking it. The guys urgently rush to help the girl and realize that she is not waking up. Furious, Duncan asks what these idiots have done and how it even occurred to them to do such a thing. Because of them, Cicely suffered, which did nothing to them. Dennis is at a loss as to how Ralph didn't understand what Cicely did, because a couple of minutes ago she insulted him, and he really didn't like it, for which he decided to make fun of her, because he knows that he won't get anything for it. His parents very respected in this world. Duncan doesn't care what Dennis says, and he decides to take revenge on the bully by introducing Dennis's face to the protagonist's fist. The classmate is shocked that Ralph dared to hit him, but the main character tells him that he is ready to beat him as much as he wants until he learns his lesson. The continuation of the fight is stopped by the teacher and the doctor, whom John called while Duncan fought for justice. Thanks to those who came, the main character understands that the health of Cicely is now more important than a fight with this garbage, so he promises to deal with them later. The hooligans run away quietly. After examining Cicely, the doctor makes a verdict. The girl was electrocuted, but nothing terrible happened, and she will wake up soon. The teacher asks why Duncan hit Dennis. John explains that his classmate was the first to start bullying, putting Cicely in mortal danger. The teacher warns Duncan that his attack on a classmate will not remain without a trace, because his parents are rune warriors, very respected people, and they will not leave this incident unattended. But the mentor assures that he will try to do everything possible to protect the main character, and sends him home to prepare for the entrance exams. After talking with their mentor, the guys escorted the ambulance with Cicely inside, and went home. At this time, the bandits are already standing at Duncan's house and are thinking about how to lure the girl out of the apartment. Fat and Long, remembering the last fight with the main character, suggest their boss to call more people, because who knows what might be waiting for them behind the doors of the apartment. After such words, the bandits receive punishment from Victor for stupidity. The boss taunts his underlings that they are so stupid and weak that they are afraid of a little disabled girl. Having listened at the door, the gangsters are convinced that the girl is home alone. Having pressed the bell, they wait for the girl to open it for them, while Susie is puzzled by who came to them. Maybe it's Duncan who has returned. Remembering that her brother took the keys with him, the girl tenses up. Having asked who is behind the door, Susie hears male voices who tell her that they have come to check the water meter, to which the girl overturns the bandits by saying that the meter they need is located outside the apartment. Long scolds Tolstoy for doing everything wrong and takes the initiative into his own hands, introducing himself as a delivery man. But this did not help in getting the girl to open the doors. Victor cannot stand the stupidity of his henchmen and easily knocks down the door, thereby entering the apartment. Once inside, the gang leader begins to ask the girl who she is and why she and her brother have different last names, to which Susie replies that she is adopted. While Victor was questioning the girl, the bandits searched the house, but did not find what they came for. Angry, the boss began to threaten the girl that if she did not tell where what her brother stole was, he would have to deal with the little girl without regret. Susie is scared. She doesn't understand what they're talking about, but the bandits don't believe her and describe in vivid colors what they will do to her. To show it more clearly, Victor rips open the girl's new toy, imagining that it is her. At this time, Duncan returns home and sees the whole picture, and, flushed with rage, threatens the bandits and orders them to leave his younger sister behind. The gangsters immediately recognize the main character and, shouting, point out to him that he beat them up near the school. But the schoolboy's threats have no effect on Victor, and he again uses the blade with Susie. Duncan, not wanting to sacrifice his sister, immediately confesses where he hides the box with its contents. Asking where he hid it, Victor realizes that his guys are just stupid. How could they not notice this box? Because it was always lying under their noses. Victor orders his henchmen to search the apartment for the presence of a package. Having knocked down the door of the storeroom where the order was hidden, the gangsters find it. Having found the chest, the gang leader opens it and notices that one egg is missing. The main character admits that one egg broke and a monster hatched from it. Victor, of course, doesn't believe this and exclaims that if it were true, Duncan wouldn't be standing here alive. The gangster tells who this package belonged to and warns the main character to give the egg. Otherwise, he and his sister will not leave here alive. Deciding to help the gangsters avenge her brother, the girl doesn't just sit there and bite the man's hand with all her might. Angered by this situation, the gang leader takes aim at the protagonist's younger sister. But Ralph manages to repel the attack and save his sister. Victor is furious and orders his boys to quickly grab the two teenagers and get rid of them. Fat, obeying his master, attacks the main character, shouting for him to just give up, because he cannot defeat these three. But Duncan easily manages to jump away from the bandit, shocking Tolstoy with such a clever reaction. The main character understands that the potion actually affects his physical component. The fat one tried to attack Duncan again but kept missing him. The main character completely exhausted the gangster. Stopping, he assured his boss that he would soon deal with Ralph. The older bandit gets tired of this outcome of events, and he uses a red stone, a stone weapon. Duncan doesn't understand why the gangsters don't believe him, because the egg really hatched, and he can't give it to the bandits. Victor is furious, because the main character simply ruined his future, because these are not just eggs, but a gift to the minister's son. During the fight, Susie notices that something is wrong with the blue egg, as if it is about to crack. She tries to tell the men about this, but they do not listen to her, because now is not the time for any jokes. The blue egg hatches into a C-rank rune monster, a dark-scaled snake, and even though this monster is still a child, it is stronger than the E-rank rune beasts. Frightened, Victor shoots the monster, thereby angering it. The furious monster attacks its offender, knocking him down. Victor realizes that they are in too small a space, and he cannot use all his powers to the maximum. Taking advantage of the moment, Duncan quickly decides to save his sister by taking her away from home. Taking Susie away, Duncan reflects that, despite the fact that he managed to defeat the spider, he will not be able to cope with the new monster. But suddenly the monster switched to the main character and his sister, forgetting about the gang leader. And at this moment, the beast calms down. Duncan does not understand what is happening, and why the snake froze in place. The main character understands that his sister is an unusual girl. She is an animal tamer. Beast tamers are born with 100% rune spirit. Only 1 in 1,000 has this gift. Duncan notices the snake's weak point, a stone on its forehead, and using his sister's ability, asks her to make the monster fall for the gangsters. At this time, Victor and his two henchmen decide to quietly leave, leaving the guys to deal with the monster themselves. Using her powers, Susie directs the dark, scaly snake at the bandits. Seeing that the beast is about to use the energy of a deadly explosion, Victor grins that now only ashes will remain from the children. But under Susie's control, the snake turns around and is about to attack the gangsters. The gangster leader manages to dodge, and the monster's attack misses him, creating a powerful explosion that collapses the walls of the building. Duncan is glad that Susie was able to subdue the beast so easily, and thanks to her, they were saved from the monster's rage. But since the girl is sick, this trick took too much energy from her, and she simply passed out. The monster's attack still hit Victor, and his magnificent hair was simply incinerated. All this made the boss very angry, and in a rage he began to shoot at the monster with his cannon. Taking better aim, the gangster manages to shoot the monster directly at the crystal in its forehead, thereby killing the rune beast. Having knocked the monster to the floor, Victor realizes that the second egg is lost, and promises that he will make the main character pay for everything. Dean comes to all the noise and fighting and finds the group in a destroyed apartment, and Susie unconscious. Victor, frightened by Dina, begins to make excuses that they came here to just check on the children. But Tolstoy, apparently not understanding what will happen to them, begins to reveal all his cards, saying that they came here to pick up their parcel. Tolstoy's stupidity infuriates Victor, and he tells the gangster to shut up, right in his face. The uncle warns the gangsters that Duncan and the girl are under his protection, and if the gangsters do anything to the children, they will have to deal with him. Frightened, Victor and his henchmen come up with a story that they just wanted to give some money to the main character. After the gangsters give their money to Duncan, they quickly run away, afraid of the consequences. Dean, seeing Susie unconscious, became worried, but Duncan reassured him by saying that she was just tired. The main character decided that he would not tell Uncle Dean about Susie's abilities for now. The main character confesses to his uncle what started the fight, and shows him the box with the egg. Dean understands that this is not their last meeting with Victor, since he works for very influential people for whom this package was intended. Uncle Dean decides that he will take the box with the egg with him for now, because it could endanger Duncan and Susie. The main character agrees with his uncle, because he understands that Susie's ability may not work next time. The uncle admits that he came to the main character about what happened at school. He supports Ralph, because these three geeks could seriously harm his daughter Cicely. But Dean doubts that this incident will pass without a trace, and the guy may still be punished for his misconduct. Duncan doesn't understand. He did the right thing by protecting his girlfriend, so why should he be punished? Dean agrees with the main character, but realizing whose son Dennis is, he advises the guy to prepare for the worst-case scenario. 3 days passed. Duncan came to school to practice his kick. In the hall, he sees a device for testing the force of impact, and decides to try himself after playing with the system. And despite the fact that the main character seems to be a weakling, he understands that he put 5 times more than his own weight into the blow. Suddenly a call came to the main character's phone. It was the teacher who told Ralph to quickly go to the school principal. His classmate and his parents were waiting for him there. There are only 18 days left before the entrance exam. The main character, having gathered to see the director, hopes that the issue regarding the situation will be resolved and everything will be fine. Dean, watching Duncan train, saw that he was using a device to test his strength and asked what result the device showed him. Afraid of being late to the director, the main character rushed after him so that Dean could see for himself what the result was. The man was surprised where Duncan was going so quickly, but one of the students interrupted him and asked him to look at the result. The counter showed a force equal to 462 kilograms. Dean is shocked. The main character has surpassed all limits of the human body, although the percentage of his rune spirit is only 27. The main character arrives at the principal's office, where he is met by a classmate and this guy's very angry parents. The school principal informs him that physical violence is prohibited at school, and therefore Ralph is expelled. The main character was indignant that he hit his classmate for a reason, but because he almost killed his girlfriend. The director doesn't want to listen to anything and calls Duncan just trash. The classmate's parents denied Dennis's involvement at the beginning of the conflict and agreed that expulsion was the best solution, because he was simply wasting the teacher's time. The teacher begs Duncan not to continue the conflict and just come to terms, because he needs to think about his sister. Duncan has accepted his fate, and leaving the office says that even despite his expulsion, he will still become a rune warrior, and everyone will regret how they treated him. Dennis grins at how the main character is going to take the warrior exam, because it is no longer available to him. After being expelled from school, all roads to becoming a rune warrior are closed to him. Duncan left school thinking, because Dennis was right, he would not become a warrior. He is abruptly pulled out of his thoughts by his friends, who, having heard about the expulsion, run to support the main character. Cicely is not ready to accept her friend's fate, and takes him to her father because she knows that he will help solve this problem. Arriving at the martial arts hall and meeting with Dean, the rune master destroys all the hopes of the protagonist and says that it is impossible to return to school, as well as to awaken and become a rune master. But my uncle knows another way to awaken and tells about it: awakening medicine. Awakening medicine is illegal, because it can lead to very unpleasant consequences, because those who drink the awakening medicine can either die or successfully awaken and become a rune master. The guys are trying to dissuade the main character from agreeing to this, but Duncan's desire is higher than the fear of death, and he says that he is ready to do anything to become a warrior. Dean says that he thought that the main character would agree to this offer, and says that in order to get the coveted awakening medicine, Duncan will have to fight the last monster from the order box. The master reports that a certain gang has found a wild dungeon in which the treasures of a powerful rune master can be stored. But the dungeon does not allow warriors, so the gang is recruiting ordinary willing people, and the one who first finds the treasure will receive the coveted bottle of awakening medicine. Cicely and John beg Duncan to think about it, because this is very dangerous, and the main character will not be able to cope with such a difficult test. Dean is annoyed that the kids are interrupting him, but adds that he will help the main character with preparation for the test. He invites Duncan to join the team of his old comrades, mercenaries who can help gain experience fighting in the wild. The main character agrees to this adventure without hesitation, even despite the fear of death. Uncle Dean was satisfied with Duncan's answer, and said that it was time to start the journey. And first they went to his old comrade, Uncle Poison Wolf. The heroes arrived at the entrance to the city and went to the cafe. Duncan, worried, asked what they were waiting for, and where that same Poison Wolf was. Dean asked the main character to be more tolerant, and wait a little. Suddenly, a roar and tremors were heard outside the gate. Someone was breaking through the western gate. Duncan noticed that people were starting to panic and assumed that the rune beasts were trying to get into the city. But Dean hurries to calm him down. The gate opened, and the carcass of a D-rank rune beast flew in. People are happy that the Blood Wolves team is back again with a trophy. Dean asks Duncan if he is afraid of what is happening, to which the protagonist replies that he is just excited, and then the master invited the guy to go and meet his old friend. Suddenly, doctors ran to meet them, shouting for everyone to disperse, as an emergency had occurred. Turning around, Duncan sees a guy screaming in pain on the couch with half his arm missing. The main character is shocked that a rune beast could do this. Dean tells him that in the wild you can earn a lot, but the danger there will also be higher. Following the carcass, the team's ship flew into the city, and noticing Dean, they landed next to him. Having landed, the Blood Wolves crew exited their ship to greet their old comrade, and asked what brought him to them. Dean said that he came to Poison Wolf to ask for a small favor, but wondered what happened to his team member. The poisonous wolf told the story that they had lost their cellmate. He had lost his arm in a battle with a rune monster. Hearing this, Dean seizes the moment and nominates Duncan as a future member of the Blood Wolves team. The leader of the team, seeing the main character, doubts his competence, because Duncan is still a child, and besides, he's not even a rune master, and fights with monsters are no joke. To become part of a team of rune hunters, you must be strong and brave. And even despite the danger of monsters, you should also be afraid of people who can substitute rune monsters for the sake of treasures. Therefore, Blood Wolf doubts that Duncan will be able to survive in the wild for even a couple of days, to which the main character tries to convince him that he is strong and can resist both monsters and people. Dean begs to take the main character into the team, but Poison Wolf flatly refuses to take the boy. Poison Wolf wondered why Dean was so supportive of the idea of Duncan becoming a member of the team, to which Dean reveals that the main character was expelled from school only because he hit Dennis while defending Sicily. The team captain is discouraged, because due to the exception, Duncan will not be able to undergo the awakening ceremony, and asks what percentage of rune spirit the main character has. Not without regret, Dean says Duncan's percentage, but asks not to judge the main character for this, because, despite the spirit, his blow was 462 kilograms. The poisonous wolf agrees to give the main character a chance, but asks Dean for a bottle of good alcohol in return. The gang leader tells Duncan to be ready to start work in 3 days, and the main character realizes that this is his chance to gain real experience and become a rune master. The day of the awakening ceremony arrived. All the school children gathered in the square to participate. John was the first to wake up. Despite the fact that the guy is not very strong, the awakening was successful. John is immensely happy, because he was very afraid that his spirit would not be enough for the stone to awaken the master in him. And in joy he shouts about this to Sicily. The girl is very upset that today is the most important day of her life, but her father and Duncan are not present. Sicily went second. The stone discovered the master in her, but this is not surprising, because her rune spirit is 97%, and she is one of the strongest masters in the future. John is very happy for his girlfriend, and his classmates are shocked, noting that Sicily is so beautiful. Dennis went next. He was confident in his abilities, and his parents shouted from the crowd reminded him of this. Upon touching the stone, no resonance occurred. At this moment, the person conducting the ceremony announces that the awakening has failed. The guy is in despair. How could the stone not see the master in him? Dennis's father begs him to try again, but those conducting the ceremony refuse him, since it is against the rules. John does not miss the moment to remember Dennis's arrogance, and laughs at him, since he became a master, but the bully did not. The father does not agree with the results and decides to go to extreme measures to ensure that his son becomes a master. He decides to use awakening medicine. No matter what, he is obliged to help his son. At this time, Duncan approaches the meeting place with the team, introducing himself and asking them to take care of him. All crew members boarded and embarked on one of the unforgettable adventures. Having taken off, the main character begins to think that although he is ready for anything, it is quite difficult for him to leave his home-safe city. He envied his friends, because they most likely had already awakened and become real masters. He also thought about his sister and those bandits who showed up at their house a few days ago. But he was calm, because Uncle Dean remained with Susie, and she was in good hands. Looking out the window, He realized that although the outside world was beautiful, it was very dangerous, and he needed to be extremely careful. Together with the crew, 2 students climbed on board, the silent girl Tina and the rich, boastful guy Leo. Professor Simon also flew with them. He and 2 of his students went to study the runic monsters, the red-tailed gull. Leo boasts to Tina that he doesn't think seagulls are scary at all, and that he's already been in the wild world many times and is no longer afraid of anything. But as soon as the bird approaches the ship, Leo jumps away from the window in horror and begins to shake with fear. After shooting the bird, one of the team members laughed at the guy because he boasted so much that he was fearless. The captain of the ship, the Firefox, on which the main character and 3 passengers were flying, doubts that with this ballast it will be possible to successfully complete the mission. Leo's heart is still pounding with fear, clutching his chest and catching his breath. He asks what this strange place is. Grinning, the fox said that this was exactly the place they were looking for. Simon explained that this is a red-tailed gull, the object of their research. Leo is very surprised why this bird is so huge. The professor explained that the world has changed so much that every animal has mutated and is now in mortal danger. So he asked his charges to be extremely careful, even if they think they are very strong. Leo, deciding to impress Tina, promises her that he will definitely protect her from all the monsters in this world. Looking at everything that is happening, Simon regrets that he took this guy with him, but he could not do otherwise, because his parents sponsored this research. Even during the flight, Professor Simon decides to test his student's knowledge and asks Leo what he knows about red-tailed gulls. But Tina interrupts him and tells him that the red-tailed gull is a school animal. Usually these monsters are F rank, but some leaders can reach E rank, and they are absolutely not worth messing with. The girl also said that these birds have mutated from ordinary seagulls, but they still retain their migratory habits and fly to regions where it is warm. Simon praised the girl and explained that they went here to study the habits of these animals, the reason for their aggression. Duncan decides to show off his knowledge even now, and added that despite the fact that this monster is an F-rank pack beast, and it can be lured using an ordinary glass ball to defeat it. Tina is surprised by Duncan's answer. She didn't think he knew so much, and begins to become a little interested in him. The professor praises the main character for his knowledge, and asks if Duncan has already awakened. Leo did not like this very much, since he was used to always being the center of attention. Duncan admits that he hasn't woken up yet, to which Leo was very indignant and said that the main character would simply be a burden to their task. To which the guy replies that he won't have any problems. But this doesn't calm Leo down, and he gets even more irritated. The Firefox reacts to this skirmish and asks Leo to shut up, since he has no right to insult a team member, and that the main character is much more useful than this kid. Leo gets even more annoyed, and just as he was about to answer the ship's captain, he is immediately stopped by the professor, who tells him that he shouldn't care what happens on this crew, and they are here for their own reasons. Suddenly, the team captain radios that they will soon arrive at their destination, and asks everyone to take a good rest and gain strength for the upcoming task. Duncan approaches Firefox and thanks her for standing up for him, to which she replied that he was now part of the team, and they should stand behind each other like a mountain. Hearing this, the main character is glad that there are finally people ready to protect him. The night fell. All team members landed in the forest, making a pass to rest before tomorrow. Leo, still angry at Duncan, yells at him asking where he will sleep. Hearing this, the Firefox throws him a bag and tells him to unwrap it himself. The guy is perplexed. He paid for this flight, to which he is told that he only paid for his own safety and he must take care of himself. After 20 minutes, Leo still fails to assemble the tent. He freaks out and decides that he doesn't need this tent, and he will sleep in the open air. Then he asks what he will eat, to which he was answered indifferently: canned food. Duncan is part of the team, so he is treated much better, and when he brings a boar into camp, it is said that the whole team will feed on it. The main character is given a chance to cut him up. Looking at the boar, Duncan realizes that this beast is F rank, and it has very thick skin that cannot be cut with ordinary weapons. Since the main character does not have a weapon, the Firefox shares hers with him. It was a low-grade rune weapon. Ralph is very surprised. This is his first time holding a real weapon, and asks if he should turn back into a rune. The fox calms the guy down, saying that it will hold its shape for another day, and says that this is now his weapon for the near future. Duncan thanks the fox and promises that he will carefully store this weapon. Having sorted out the sleeping arrangements and dinner, the poison wolf announces that he and Duncan will be on duty, and that everyone else should go to bed to rest. Everyone in the camp went to bed. Having let everyone go to sleep, the head of the team invites the main character to climb his tree. Duncan reaches the required branch in one jump, which greatly surprises the poison wolf. After lighting a cigarette, the leader wonders if it is true that the main character has only 27% of the rune spirit. But during training, he managed to hit approximately 500 kilograms, to which he received a positive answer. Laughing at the fact that the main character is very strange, the wolf promises that he will help Duncan go to the dungeon. But not now, since he will die there. Ralph was indignant. He had just been told that he was very strong, so why didn't he go to the dungeon now? But this outraged the poison wolf. At this question, Duncan received a blow from his leg and flew down from the tree. The captain explains that even a strong guy like him cannot survive in the dungeon without the right mindset. People who have nothing to lose go into the dungeon and are ready to do anything. The main thing is to win. Therefore, the main character will have to become more ruthless, so that he has a chance to survive. The main character insists that he is ready to make any sacrifice. This inspired the boss, and he decided to give the guy a lesson before he sent him to the dungeon. Having gathered in the forest for the first training, they leave the firefox on duty at the camp. Having walked into the forest, they heard that someone was hiding behind the bushes, and moving aside the tall ears of corn, they had a view of the enemy. It was the same boar whose brother they caught today and ate for dinner. Duncan doubted his abilities and began to give up. But the poison wolf motivates the main character to fight, pushing him out of the thicket straight towards the monster. And the boss warns that if Duncan is still afraid, then let him pack his things and go home. Hearing a fuss in the bushes and seeing the main character, the boar perked up, ready to attack the uninvited guest. The boar rushed straight at Duncan, and the guy decides to use the weapon that the fox gave him. But without waiting, the monster attacks the main character, but he manages to dodge. The boar almost hit Duncan, and he is thinking about how to defeat this monster, because it is stronger than those he had encountered before. The poisonous wolf reminds that the simulation in which the main character trained is nothing compared to the real world, and he has no right to make a mistake, otherwise he will die. Hearing the boss, Duncan takes all the power into his own hands and hits the boar in the back of the head with a knife. But surprisingly, this did not harm the boar in any way, but only made him even more angry. In a panic, the poisonous wolf begins to remind him that only recently the main character was butchering a boar, and asks him to quickly remember the weak point of the beast. Duncan remembers cutting up a boar in the evening, and realizes that the weak point is the neck. The next blow was the last, the boar was defeated, but the main character remained alive. Immediately after the murder, the system reminds itself by giving a new task, to kill 10 F-rank rune beasts. But the main character understands that this task is practically impossible, because he barely coped with one boar. The team leader praises Duncan, but warns that F-rank monsters are not so dangerous. Any person can kill them. But E-rank should be feared, and if the main character sees one of the representatives of this group, he should run away. Also, the poison wolf did not leave the guy without a reward, and handed him a rune for future purposes, when he becomes a real master. After this battle, the boss decides that he will continue to train the main character and make him a strong person. Duncan is happy because this will help him complete the system task. After this massacre, the main character realizes that this has caused him excitement, and he believes that he was truly born to become a rune master. From that time on, the main character had to fight many battles with various monsters, where he increased his strength and slowly completed tasks given by the system. Poison Wolf becomes convinced that Dean was telling the truth about Duncan, and he wonders to what level of strength the main character can grow. Morning came. The bright sun climbed out of the horizon, illuminating and waking up all nature. The last, 5th monster has been defeated, but this is still not enough to complete the system's task. But the main character is grateful to the boss for this productive night, because with each killed beast, Duncan becomes stronger, and the Poison Wolf gave a reward for each kill. The gang leader threw a bottle of water to the main character, saying that the training was over for today, and the guy could go to bed. Ralph doesn't want to finish, and asks the boss to let him kill at least one more monster. But the chief assures that a tired warrior is useless, so they return to camp. Almost everyone in the camp is already awake and doing their usual morning routine. As soon as Duncan and the wolf enter the camp, the fox interrogates where the two were all night, to which the leader replies, they had training. The main character went to his tent, and passing by Tina, the girl notices a huge amount of rune stones in the guy's bag, and begins to doubt that he is an ordinary person. Entering the tent, Duncan empties out the entire contents of his bag. Reflecting on the purpose of the rune stones, he realizes that now they are completely useless, because the guy has not yet awakened, which means he will not be able to absorb the energy of the stones. Having touched the stone, suddenly the system sends a notification about whether the main character wants to extract and absorb their energy. Ralph, of course, agrees with the system's proposal. And having agreed, the energy of the stone passes to the main character, after which his level increased. The guy realizes that while he is not a rune master, he will be able to rely on the system to extract and absorb the energy of the stones into himself. Thanks to the level increase, the main character's stats increased, and he became even stronger. But the guy still had 15 unallocated points, which he added to physique, 10, wisdom, 3, and strength, 2. Due to the increase in stats, Duncan realized that all his fatigue had passed, and his senses had sharpened. And now he is confident that thanks to this, he will complete the task in one night the next. While the main character was resting in the tent, the firefox approached the poison wolf and asked how the guy was doing, to which the leader praised Duncan, saying that his learning speed was incredibly fast and his fighting abilities were amazing. The fox is surprised that the boss praises this guy, because he does this very rarely. The wolf says that the guy is very capable and asks the fox to go and rest. The fox is perplexed, but when she said that she is not tired, the leader insists on rest, saying that he has plans for her. She must help in training with Duncan. Evening came. The main character was looking forward to this time to finally start a new workout. Approaching the boss during dinner, he told him that today's lesson would be held under the guidance of the firefox, which greatly surprised Duncan. To the surprise of the main character, one of the team members reacted, laughing at the fact that the guy was scared, but he need not worry, since the fox likes young guys, and she will be more kind to him. Fiery did not like her cellmate's joke, and she shot his dinner, saying that the man himself would be the next one to come under her gun. Looking at Lisa, the main character was surprised that although the girl looked calm, her character was quite explosive, since because of some harmless joke, she almost killed her comrade. The captain hastens to reassure Duncan, saying that even despite her fragile appearance, Vixen is a very experienced sniper, and she can teach the main character a lot. The guy agrees with the wolf and is ready to start working with the fox. The fox ends the dialogue and tells the main character to follow her to start a new training session. Seeing what is happening, Tina becomes very interested in their affairs and asks the professor to go with them, to which he categorically refuses her. Tina is at a loss why she can't if Duncan can, even though he is an ordinary person and not an awakened master. Professor Simon cools the girl's ardor and explains that he is completely different from her. Arriving in the forest, the fox announces that today they will play hide and seek. The main character has only 3 lives. The game began. For the first time, the fox found Duncan on a tree and almost set him on fire with her weapon. The second time, she found him in the water and practically drowned him. The main character has 1 life left, and the fox announces that if he holds out for a minute and the fox does not find him, then he has passed the test, but if on the contrary, then no dungeon will be given to him. The third game started. Lisa set the timer for 1 minute. She wants to check if Duncan is worthy of real praise from the boss. Suddenly something moved in the bushes, and the girl without hesitation shot there. Having examined the place of shelling, the fox realized that it was not Duncan, but just a bunny. Something creaked on a tree branch, and Lisa shot again, hoping that this was the main character. It was just a snake. A minute later, the fox still had not found Duncan, and suggested that he could cheat and run back to camp. 30 seconds, the main character has still not been found, and Fire understands that she will have to break the rules. She activates the runestone skill, Snake Eye. Thanks to her skill, the fox finds Duncan in the bushes. She is surprised that the main character is cunning, chose the most dangerous place, and, in order to distract attention, deliberately put the bunny under fire. Looking out from behind the bushes, the main character sees that the fox is aiming straight at his head. He tried to escape, but his whole body was numb. He could not even move a finger. But a minute passes and time runs out. The fox praises the guy for not being scared. Seeing that she was aiming right at him, Duncan has every chance of becoming a sniper. Even though she broke the rules and used the snake eye, she is still pleased with the protagonist's abilities. Duncan completed the task and asks the fox if she will teach him other skills. Although the girl praised the main character for his ability to hide well, she admitted that if he competes with other rune masters, they will easily find him with the help of skills, just like she is now. But Lisitsa also gave valuable advice in order to become a good sniper. You need to be calm and observant. You need to be able to anticipate all situations and every trick of the enemy. Then he can always be safe. After these words, she throws some strange glasses at Duncan. The fox explains that these are glasses for scouts and snipers. They help detect rune beasts, and they also display important information. Duncan is happy, because this will help him in the future to hunt animals and complete the task of the system. By activating the glasses and looking at the hair, the glasses give him the following information: name, power, and level rating. Duncan thanks his sister in complete delight, but she hastens to cool him down by saying that their training is not over yet. Morning came, the main character and the fox trained all night. Entering the camp and wishing everyone good morning, The team members were shocked by the appearance of Duncan. The main character was pale, tired, and completely rumpled, and Lisa looked quite cheerful. One of the participants became worried and suggested that Duncan lie down because he looked very bad and tortured, to which the main character, without having time to say anything, simply collapsed. The poisonous wolf realized that the training was successful, but was worried about how he would pass today's test in the dungeon. But the fox reassured him, because for some reason the main character recovers very quickly. Already lying in the tent, Duncan was thinking that he only had 3 animals left to kill. The monsters that the sister chose were much more powerful than those that the boss chose, which means the runestones must contain more energy. Without thinking any further, Duncan received energy through the system, and his rune spirit was already 71%. Thanks to the absorption of energy, fatigue disappeared as if by chance. But the main character decided to take a nap just in case, because in the evening, the test in the dungeon awaits him. It was getting dark. Everyone present in the camp was having dinner. Suddenly, Tina felt a strong surge of energy from Duncan's tent and was very surprised because he was an ordinary guy. Professor Simon asked the girl to give him research notes, but Tina was so lost in her thoughts that she handed the professor not a notebook, but a burning stick. Simon's shout quickly cheered Tina up. At this moment, Duncan comes out of the tent and reports that it is time for him to set out. Ralph is confident that thanks to training with the fox and the wolf, he will pass the test without any effort. Seeing the main character, the girl notices that the guy has changed a lot and become stronger in just one night. At the exit from the camp, Duncan is met by a team member, Monkey, and invites the main character to go for a ride. Suddenly, Leo crawls out of the bushes and asks where these two are going for the night. The guys brush him off, saying that they're just looking around. But Leo doesn't believe them, because he has a lot of experience in surviving in the wild. Not wanting to listen to him any further, Duncan easily jumps onto the ship and the guys set off. Leo is unhappy that they didn't want to talk to him and started shouting something at them. But the guys absolutely don't care anymore. Looking at the retreating ship, the poison wolf, turning to the fox, said that he really hoped that the guy would return alive. The fox is confident that Duncan will win and become the most outstanding rune master. Leo, still hoping to melt Tina's heart, finds a flower and hurries to her to give it to her. But having reached the professor, he realizes that the girl is not next to him, and asks Simon the whereabouts of Tina. The professor assumed that the girl had returned to her tent, and Leo was not at all happy about this. Meanwhile, in the sky, Monkey and Duncan were flying towards their destination. The monkey reports that Dean has prepared a bag for Duncan with everything he needs so that he can survive the test. The main character is very grateful to Uncle Dean for placing him on the team, and if it weren't for him, Duncan would have died long ago from the clutches of some runic beast. The monkey warns the protagonist that he will be waiting for him outside the dungeon, so he orders him to survive at any cost. Duncan thanks his comrade and asks that if he still does not survive, tell Dean to take care of Sicily and not give it to anyone. But the monkey advises the main character to remain calm and with a fresh head. The guy agrees. Even despite how much he trained, he needs to stay within himself and be ready for any situation. Suddenly, Duncan hears some noise behind him. Turning around, he sees Tina, who secretly made her way into their ship. The girl screamed in delight, asking where they were going. Frightened, the main character asks where she came from, to which the girl replied that she heard that they were going somewhere and wanted to fly with them. The monkey understands that if they fly back to return Tina, they will not be in time for the start of the test, so there is nothing to be done. The 3 of them will have to fly, but reminds that by sneaking secretly onto the ship, she violated safety regulations, and if something happens to her the guys will be responsible for her. Smiling, Tina asked not to look down on her, showing that she was not a helpless girl, but an F-rank rune master. Duncan thought about it. Tina looked to be the same age as him, but she had already awakened, and assumed that her parents were very powerful. Snatching the main character out of his thoughts, Tina asked where they were going after all, but Duncan did not answer her. Having flown a little further, the guy answered her question. The girl was very surprised that they were flying to a dungeon call, and for the sake of some kind of awakening medicine. Duncan quipped that people like her, rich and beautiful, would not understand his aspirations, and they would never go there. Tina is very surprised, because this guy has only 27% of the rune spirit, and he must risk his life to become a master, fighting with others like him for life and death. The girl asked why it was so important for Duncan to become a rune master. The main character admits that this is all for the sake of the opportunity to protect his family and people close to him, whom he loves so much. Tina was imbued with Duncan's speeches, and said that she believed in him, and was sure that he would definitely return alive and become a master. The heroes flew up to the dungeon. There they were met by the organizers, demanding to see their entry pass. After looking at the pass, one of the organizers began to laugh at Duncan, calling him another piece of garbage in search of death. Hearing this, Tina could not restrain herself and demanded to repeat what these bandits said, to which they simply grinned at her. The monkey asks the girl to be careful because they are in wild lands, and it will be very bad if they offend the wrong person here. The organizer, throwing the pass, allows Duncan to go inside. As she gets closer to the entrance, Tina notices something. It was someone's grave. The girl is surprised how this whole event can be kept secret. Monkey suggested that perhaps this was the resting place of some powerful rune master, and he chose this forest to die in peace, and created this dungeon as a deterrent before his death. Duncan asked why they could enter so easily then, to which the team member could not answer him, saying that only by entering this dungeon and going through it would he be able to find out about it. Suddenly the main character heard a familiar voice. Turning around, he saw Dennis, who was standing surrounded by some mercenaries. Duncan asked why the guy was there. Remembering that the awakening ceremony took place a few days ago, he realizes that Dennis failed the awakening, which means he is just as trash as he is. Dennis is angry that the main character compares him to himself, and reminds him that he has rich parents who hired bodyguards for him, which means that upon entering the dungeon, he will not have to do anything, unlike Duncan. The bully warns Ralph to be careful and not meet him, because if he is killed, no one will look for him. Reminding that there is only one medicine, Dennis says that it already belongs to him, and Duncan is just a step in becoming a rune master. The monkey asks who this arrogant guy is and offers to quickly throw him out of here. Hearing this, Dennis begins to call his parents in hysterics. When called, Dennis's mother and father come out of the ship, and when they see Duncan, they immediately recognize him. Duncan, laughing, asks the monkey if he still wants to throw out the bully. For some reason his comrade did not answer. Dennis's father, noticing the monkey, realizes that he is from the Bloody Wolf Squad, and begins to threaten that if he even touches his son with a finger, he will be in trouble. The monkey immediately gave back and said that he was just joking. Suddenly everyone present heard some screaming and shots. A large man, Jin, a D-rank rune master, drove up to them and asked everyone to listen to him carefully. He doesn't care about the personality or power of those present, and everyone should follow his instructions to obtain a single bottle of awakening medicine. Seeing Jin, the monkey said that he absolutely did not want to face this crazy man, and Tina asked why. A team member said that Jin is from a gang that lives in the wild. They rob commercial shuttles that fly between cities, and even the police could not eliminate this gang, because they hid so well that the police were looking for them for 3 months, but couldn't find it. After this, Jin blew up 10 expensive shuttles in retaliation, and also sent a bunch of rune beast claws to the minister's house as a warning. Dennis, like a spoiled son, said why doesn't his father just grab and take away the awakening medicine? The father is in a hurry to shut his son's mouth, because Jin is a D-rank master of runes, and he is no match for him. Immediately after that, they are shot at. Jin heard what Dennis was saying and warned that if he heard anything like that again, he would hang the poor guy from a tree, and he would become food for wild birds. Jin announces the rules. Behind the entrance to the dungeon is a primeval forest with many F-rank rune beasts. The goal of the participants is to avoid the jaws of these monsters and reach the abandoned palace of the God of Death in the center of the dungeon. In the palace there is a statue of the God of Death, and at the foot there is a large chest, and whoever returns the chest to Jin will receive an awakening medicine. Jin also announces that the participants have only one night to do everything, and when the sun rises, the entrance to the dungeon will automatically close, and will only open in 3 months. After hearing all the rules, Tina thought that everything sounded simple from words, but ordinary, not awakened people would find it very difficult to defeat even the lowest rank monster. Dennis is hysterical. He is afraid and does not want to go to the dungeon, but his mother calms him down, saying if he wants to become a master, he must go. At the same moment, the monkey encourages Duncan and assures that the main character can do anything, and he and Tina will be waiting for him here. Approaching Ralph, Tina hands over a bandage that can help Duncan while falling from different heights. The monkey is confused because this thing is very expensive. Tina annoyedly replies that she just wants Duncan to not die so easily. Jin announces that the dungeon will open soon and encourages everyone to enter now. The mercenaries forcefully drag Dennis into the dungeon. Duncan glances at his comrades and promises that he will definitely survive. Once inside, Duncan runs through all the rules that Jin said in his head. Suddenly he hears a piercing scream. The main character is surprised that the hunt for other participants began so quickly, and decides to leave this place quickly and try to avoid fights with others. The screaming continues again, someone desperately asking for help. The main character jumped onto a tree to look around and find the place where the scream was coming from. Looking around, Duncan sees a girl in the swamp. The main character understands that he needs to be the most careful of all, but he cannot watch the girl die. Before he could go down to help, Duncan saw another girl running to help. Running up, the girl extends her hand to the victim, trying to pull her out of the swamp. But taking her hand, the drowning woman grinned and pulled her rescuer along with her. The rescuer fell into the swamp, and the drowning woman easily gets out of there. Having come to her senses, the girl in front of her sees the same drowning woman in the company of two men, and, frightened, asks her how she could do this to her. The men laugh at the girl and say that she is too naive, and in such a place you can't trust anyone, and that if she meets them, she will be very unlucky, because they will take everything from her. The former drowning woman, saying that kindness is a hindrance, raises a gun over the poor girl. By pressing the trigger, a shot was fired directly into the head of the unfortunate girl. Duncan, seeing all this, is furious. How can one be so vile and kill competitors with such methods? While mocking the girl's murder, the bandits suddenly heard some noise in the tree. Turning around, they see someone sitting there and threateningly orders him to show himself. Duncan panics as to how the three discovered him. A chase has begun. The bandits are trying to catch Duncan, assuring him that he will never escape and that he should give up quickly. The main character, running away from the mercenaries, wonders how someone can be so crazy and kill just for fun. So he is very glad that they are much slower than him, and he is able to escape from a not very pleasant fate. But before he has time to think about saving himself, a bullet flies past Duncan, almost hitting him. The shooter was a girl from these triplets. Even though the main character is faster than these people, he will not be able to run far from a bullet, and they are not stopped by the fact that weapons are generally prohibited. Duncan manages to hide out of sight of the bandits, and then they decide that he could not run far, and they will split up and thoroughly search the entire territory. Suddenly something moved in the bushes. The lady immediately starts shooting there, thinking that it was the main character who gave away his location. After shooting at the bushes, Ralph suddenly jumps out behind the girl and holds a knife to her throat. The girl is perplexed, because she accurately shot at the target, since he was able to appear right behind her. Duncan declares that even a pistol will not help her, because thanks to its speed, they will never be able to aim and shoot directly at the target. Seeing that the girl's partners are looking directly at them, he threatens the men and orders them to drop their weapons. Otherwise, he will kill her. The mercenary trembles with fear and immediately begins to beg the main character to let her go, because she is absolutely not guilty of anything. She just wants to become a rune master, like everyone else present in the dungeon. The men scoff at this whole situation, because suddenly they have all changed places, but they warn that the main character should not threaten them, because he will not be able to cope with the consequences. Pointing the gun at the main character, a shot rang out. The mercenaries, without regret, shoot the girl straight in the chest, and admit that she was just bait to remove other competitors. But since there is only one cure, sooner or later they would have killed her anyway. Duncan is in silent shock. How can one be so inhuman and cruel as to kill a person just like he is some kind of ant? The real world, the world of rune masters, is too cruel. During the chase, the mercenaries note that the main character is quite strong, and invites them to unite and work together. At this moment, Duncan thought, he must become a rune master in order to protect his family, and he will have to put an end to his ideals. In order to survive here, he needs to stain his hands with blood. One of the bandits pulled him out of his thoughts. At that moment, the main character did not wait for the next fight and started it himself, pushing the mercenary with his foot. Thanks to the system, Duncan became much stronger, so he easily managed to knock the big guy to the ground. The second mercenary was angry how this child dared to do this, because they gave him a chance to be saved, but now they are definitely ready to kill the main character. A shot, a warm stain of blood turns purple on the bandit's chest, spreading all over his t-shirt. The mercenary is still alive and tries to squeeze out words. Without giving him a chance to finish, Duncan shoots the bandit a couple more times so that he has no chance of salvation. He is not going to stand on ceremony with them, not allowing them to get in his way. Having seen the whole picture, the second one, getting angry, begins to shoot at the main character, wanting to avenge his partner. But Duncan easily manages to dodge these furious attacks. The bandit is shocked how the guy manages to move so fast. This is impossible from a human point of view. Duncan, laughing at the fact that the mercenary is too slow, shoots him straight in the chest. Looking at what the main character has done, he remembers the words of the poison wolf, that in the wild, people are more dangerous than animals, and if not for his physical abilities, he would have died long ago. The smell of blood will soon spread throughout the area. Duncan urgently needs to leave, because now the runic beasts will come running to the corpses. Meanwhile, Dennis and his bodyguards are exploring the dungeon area. A friend heard a heart-rending cry for help from the bushes. One of the bodyguards suggested that someone had been attacked by a rune beast, and asked if he should go and check, to which the second callously replied that they should not care, because it was their competitor anyway. Dennis agreed with the second bodyguard, answering that they should protect him. The mercenary promised that they would not let the guy be offended. Having walked a little further, a man flew out of the bushes, again begging for help. He promises that he will pay a large amount. The main thing is that they help him. Dennis, not wanting to share the help of his bodyguards, sends the unfortunate man away to deal with everything himself. The guy shouts that he will give as much as he needs, but a rune beast sneaks up behind him and simply swallows the poor fellow without chewing. It was an F-rank rune beast, a dark shadow wolf. One of the bodyguards suggested that the monster had recently matured, and, having eaten the poor fellow, he still felt hungry, so it was worth dealing with him as quickly as possible. Dennis is in a panic. This is a real rune beast, and the mercenaries are just people, so it's worth running away faster. But one of the bodyguards calmed the guy down, saying that he underestimates their fighting abilities. They are different from the rest. They grew up in the wild from childhood, and from the cradle they fought with similar animals every day just to survive. At that same second, the monster was defeated. The mercenary deftly cut the beast's throat. Dennis is glad, because the guys are so strong, and that it was not in vain that his parents hired them, because with them, he is definitely safe. Having ripped apart the beast, the mercenary pulls out a runestone from it, and despite the fact that this crystal is of the lowest rank, it is enough to keep the bandits having fun for several days. Dennis offers another deal with the mercenaries, since they are so strong that they can deal with the monsters in one fell swoop. The mercenary warns that their services cost money, to which the guy claims that he has enough finances to pay for another service. Interested, the bodyguard asks what the young master is offering them. Dennis gives a new order that if they meet Duncan, they must kill him in the most brutal manner. At this time, at the entrance to the dungeon, Tina stands and wonders what the situation is inside, and whether the main character is still alive. Noticing this, the monkey teased the girl that she cared too much about Duncan. Tina hastened to justify herself that she simply noticed that the main character was different from ordinary people who had not awakened as rune masters, so she was simply curious whether he could cope with the tests inside the dungeon. The monkey agreed with Tina's observation and reassured her that he was much stronger than the others. But in his heart, the monkey was in turmoil. He was not bothered by the animals that lived in the dungeon, but by the other participants in the test, because 3 hours had already passed, and no one had yet appeared at the exit. Meanwhile, the main character has already reached the palace of the god of death. Looking around, Duncan realizes that it looks like he got to the place first. Thanks to the training of the firefox, the main character learned to hide well, thereby avoiding collisions with other participants and animals, so it was easy for him to quickly get to the palace. Suddenly, Duncan heard something, and having managed to jump away, some kind of shell flew to the place where he was standing. These were Dennis's bodyguards, who, it seems, also managed to reach the temple without incident. Behind the bodyguards, Duncan saw Dennis himself, who ordered the mercenaries to quickly kill the main character. The main character does not understand why Dennis hates him so much, because they were just classmates. Having asked whether his classmate really wanted to fight with him, Dennis demanded that Duncan shut up, and reminded him that he had already said that he would make the main character regret that he had ever gotten involved with him. The bodyguards do not need to be reminded of anything, so they immediately, without hesitation, attacked the main character. One of the bandits was the first to try to attack Duncan, and the main character understands that although these people are not rune masters, he should be careful with them, because they are very strong. From behind, a man with a sword flies up to the main character. Duncan dodges. The mercenaries are shocked that an ordinary person can have such a reaction, which is equivalent to an F-rank rune master, and assume that perhaps he took some kind of doping to increase his strength and speed. Dennis is furious, as such experienced killers are unable to kill any ordinary person. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a huge, long tongue comes out and grabs one of the mercenaries. This tongue belonged to a red-striped toad, an F-rank rune beast. At that very second, the toad swallows the poor fellow. None of those present expected to see a monster here, so everyone lost their vigilance and allowed their partner to be devoured. Dennis calls on his bodyguards to forget about this toad and quickly enter the palace, because their main goal is there. Having listened to him, one of the mercenaries takes something out of his bag and throws it at Duncan. Arriving at the main character, the bottle explodes. It turns out to be a powder that is extracted from the body of a female red-striped toad, and now Duncan is the monster's main target. The bandits are sure that despite the fact that the main character is very strong, he cannot defeat the toad, which means they are already one step away from victory. The mercenaries lived in the wild, so they have different things with strange effects. Thanks to this serum, the toad switched to Duncan and began to attack him. The main character, wanting to quickly kill this toad, begins to shoot at it with a pistol, which he took from the mercenaries whom he killed. But bullets are not effective against this monster. And Duncan remembers that the toad has a weak spot: its belly. Without giving even a minute to rest, the toad knocks the gun out of the hands of the protagonist using his powerful tongue. Having managed to dodge the next attack, Duncan jumps onto a tree and remembers that red-striped toads have no sense of smell. They navigate using their vision and are very sensitive to moving objects. Deciding to take advantage of this, the main character takes off his jacket and throws it to the toad, to which she instantly reacts. Taking advantage of this moment, Duncan quickly flies up to the toad and easily rips open its stomach. The system counts this kill and gives progress 9-10. Duncan rejoices over the victory, satisfied that his good studies were not in vain. After making sure that the toad is really dead, the main character heads to the temple to get even with Dennis and take the main prize for himself. Entering the temple, the mercenaries and Dennis see a huge statue of the god of death, and a chest next to it, which is good, because they were the first to get to it. Dennis is rejoicing, because finally his hated Duncan is dead, and he will become a real rune master and will not let his family down. One of the bodyguards got a strange feeling from this temple. The gang leader hastened to shut up his partner, because everything was fine, and they would soon leave here. The one-eyed mercenary was about to go after the chest, but suddenly he was stopped by a painfully familiar voice. It was Duncan, and he came to deal with the hooligans and take the chest himself.